At this point I already made a few guides on how to play several vehicles, and for most of them I can't recommend to brawl. Either the reload time is too long, the armor too thin, or the weak spots too prominent. Finally I found another tank that seems to be able to fight in close combat. Welcome to my new video, a guide on how to play the KV-85. First off, I will give a short overview about the advantages and disadvantages of this tank before I talk about my tips on how to play it. The KV-85 is a rank 3 Soviet heavy tank with a BR of 4.7 for realistic battles. Let's start with the 85mm gun. It comes with around 148mm of penetration value for the armor piercing shell. As for most of the Soviet tanks, you can unlock another shell that has less penetration value but more explosive filling and a better performance against sloped armor. I personally go with the stock shell. In my opinion, the 148mm of penetration value are amazing for this BR, but we want to keep in mind that the enemy also got some strong guns. The KV-85 has a good rate of fire with a reload time of up to 7.4 seconds, and the mobility is quite impressive for a heavy tank. Especially in up tiers you can get fast to a flanking position and surprise the M18s. When you have to peek and boom around the corner, you can use the 14 km/h of reverse speed to back up into solid cover. As always for the Soviet tanks, the lack of gun depression is a disadvantage and you have to find some good positions on the map. The commander's hatch is a huge weak spot since 3 out of 4 crew members are cramped into the turret. The turret rotation is also not that fast and it might take some time to get your aim on the target. As solution, just play it like a casemate in some situations. Let's have a closer look at the armor. On paper the armor is not that good for the BR 4.7. The KV-85 still has the box-shaped hull of the KV-1 and the flat parts of the front armor are no match for most of the enemy guns. The same goes for the turret, although it can bounce some shots. However, there are some spots on the armor that cannot be penetrated when angled. So how does this overview match with my initial statement that the KV-85 has some armor to use and can brawl? I was quite surprised as I played this tank more aggressively and was actually successful. The trick is to use all the advantages of the KV-85 in combination. Here are my tips. Tip number 1: brawl. When you get a down tier match, I recommend to brawl around the capture points. However, you still want to use solid cover to protect your weak spots. Always remind yourself about the commander's hatch. In addition, you can pick your fights. There are enemies with weaker guns and squishy armor like the M24. Just push them. When you encounter a stronger enemy like the American M6, use the advantages of the KV-85. As mentioned, there are some spots on the armor of this tank that can't be penetrated easily and the enemy has to aim for your weak spots. Angle your hull, make sure not to expose your side armor and use the mobility to peek around the corner, shoot at the enemy and back up again. The good reverse speed gives you the extra edge. You can use the good penetration value and reload speed to your advantage. You don't necessarily have to aim for weak spots. In my opinion, the enemy tanks at this BR are more squishy than the KV-85. Tip number 2: play as support. The moment you don't get a down tier match, I recommend to use the mobility of the KV-85 and flank the enemies. You can also try to support from the second row alongside with the IS-2s. With your fast reload you are the teammate that enables the IS-2s to play more aggressively because you are able to protect them while they are reloading. The KV-85 really is an all-rounder and the 85mm gun is still amazing in up tier matches. Sometimes I was even able to bounce some shots in full up tier matches, but I would not rely on that. Tip number 3: peek and boom. As always for the Soviet tanks, peek and boom is the preferred technique. Use a ridgeline or a rock as solid cover to protect your tank and peek out of the cover when it is safe to do so. Remember to angle your hull to improve your effective armor. Use the reverse speed to back up fast if needed. Here are some additional tips that helped me to improve my gameplay with the KV-85. Stay on the move. Even when you have a full down tier match and you brawl with the enemy, I recommend to use some solid cover and stay on the move. You really want to use the mobility of this tank. Give the enemy a hard time as he has to aim properly. You have the gun to just shoot at the enemy while they have to aim for your weak spots. This can give you the extra seconds you need to win a fight. Shooting with binoculars. Again, the good gun and the relatively bad armor of your opponents comes in handy. When you have a map with a lot of foliage, you can use the visual cover to hide your tank. Use binoculars to aim on the target. Align your gun, adjust the distance if necessary, hold the fire button and switch to the gunner's perspective. You will fire automatically and profit. I hope I was able to give you some tips on how to play the KV-85. Like, subscribe and leave a comment if you want to, and check out my Discord server for more information and to connect with other players. Hope to see you in game soon.